Sarah and Her Sloppy Spaghetti, written and illustrated by Chantelle Gilbert. Sarah was a girl who wasn't all too strange, but wasn't all too normal either. She loved to cook, but not just anything. She loved to cook the sloppiest and slimiest spaghetti you have ever tasted. Now, if you had ever tasted this famous dish of hers, you would know that you would need to look out for her special ingredient. Every day she would cook, and every day she would have a new special ingredient, and it sure was special, all right. Sarah often went past many interesting objects, and if one ever caught her eye, she would pick it up and save it for later. She made all types of funny flavored spaghetti. On Thursday, whilst walking in the park with her mum, she came across a frog. Mum gave Sarah her famous, "Don't you even think about it" look. But Sarah made quite sure she'd missed that glare. And when Mum wasn't looking, Sarah quickly snatched it up and put it in her pocket. Shortly after arriving home, Sarah began to prepare her sloppy spaghetti. And as she was about to put in the spaghetti, there was a great, big, booming voice coming from her bedroom. "Sarah," boomed her mom, "this room of yours is terrible. If it is not tidied up by the morning, there will be no cooking this weekend." This made Sarah very angry. Her mom knew her little brother Johnny had been in her room causing havoc, so why was she supposed to clean up the mess? But Mum wouldn't let her say one more word. She told Sarah that straight after cooking, she was to clean her room. Sarah was not happy at all, so she took her time cooking. She slowly boiled the water, threw in some salt, put in the spaghetti, spiced her mince, chopped some tomatoes, and splash! In went the frog from her pocket. When everything was cooked, she gave the pot an aggravated stir and then dished up. Everyone sat down at the dinner table, said grace, and examined their bowls. They noticed a rather leggy special ingredient, but decided it must just be some herbs. Everyone started to eat their sloppy spaghetti, and by the second mouthful, Mum's tongue started to tingle, and their nose started to wiggle. And then, all of a sudden, there was an explosion in her mouth. Her eyes widened as she put down her bowl and got really angry for no particular reason. Then Johnny's tongue started to tingle, and his nose started to wiggle, and wha-pow! He got an explosion in his mouth, and Johnny got angry for no particular reason. Sarah thought it was strange. She was angry, but she had a reason. Next thing, everybody was yelling, and both Sarah and Johnny were sent to their rooms. Whilst Sarah unwillingly cleaned her room, she happened to come across a family of cockroaches that had taken nest under her bed. She peered around, saw no one was looking, and quickly snatched them up and put them in her pockets. She thought they would do quite nicely for an extra crunchy spaghetti breakfast. Sarah woke up the next day feeling rather delighted. She had forgotten all about last night's drama and knew today was going to be a good day. She was happy because today was her favorite day, Friday, and she was going to visit her best friend, Lisa. As Sarah got ready for school, her sense of glee started to build. She put on her best school dress, wore her prettiest bows in her hair, and put on her newly polished school shoes. Sarah couldn't wait to go cook breakfast and be off to school with Lisa. Once Sarah was all dressed and ready, she skipped through to the kitchen to make her famous dish, with today's special ingredient tucked away in her pocket. Sarah quickly boiled the water, threw in some salt, put in the spaghetti, spiced her mince, chopped her tomatoes, and then plop! In went the family of cockroaches. She gave the pot a joyful twirl with her spoon and dished a bowl for herself and Dad. The rest should leave for Mum and Johnny later. Dad walked in and gave a big stretch and a roaring yawn, picked up his bowl and started to eat his rather crunchy breakfast. Just after swallowing his second mouthful, his tongue began to tingle and his nose began to wiggle. He put down his bowl and yelled, "Yippee!" He jumped to his feet. Dad felt overjoyed for no particular reason. Dad was excited to get to work and sit at his desk all day. And strangest of all, he was delighted to be stuck doing paperwork on a Friday. Sarah thought it was quite strange. She put down her bowl, backed away slowly to the door to leave for school. Sarah couldn't take her mind off of how weird everyone had been acting and how their moods were changing so drastically out of nowhere. And strangest of all was that their moods were for no particular reason, and Sarah's moods were always for a reason. That afternoon at Lisa's house, Sarah offered to make her famous sloppy spaghetti for everyone. They were all so delighted that they would finally have the chance to taste the famous dish she had always spoken of. But little did they know that on Sarah's way to school this morning, she passed some beautiful yellow flowers that happened to catch her eye. She looked around, saw no one was looking, and quickly picked a few and put them safely into her pockets. So Sarah boiled her water, threw in some salt, added her spaghetti, spiced her mince, chopped her tomatoes, and splash! In went her yellow flowers. While Sarah was cooking, Lisa kept on tickling her. Sarah would giggle and wiggle and slop her spaghetti over the side of the pot and onto the walls. Just before dishing up, Sarah gave one last giddy stir with a chuckle and dished up 4 big bowls of her sloppy spaghetti. They all sat at the table. Lisa's dad said grace, and they all began to eat. Sarah, the spaghetti tastes wonderful, said Lisa's mum. Then, just after swallowing the second mouthful, their tongues started to tingle and their noses started to wiggle. Lisa's family looked up, stared at each other, and then the strangest thing happened. They all began to laugh and giggle and wiggle. Sarah looked at Lisa and her family. She looked at the spaghetti and she stopped and she thought about it. She couldn't understand why all these strange mood swings were happening to everyone, and straight after eating her spaghetti. That night, as Sarah lay in her bed, thinking about the past few days and the strange events that had taken place, she suddenly realized. When Sarah cooked for Mom and Johnny, she was angry. After they ate it, they got angry for no particular reason. When Sarah cooked for her dad, she was very excited. After Dad ate the spaghetti, he got very excited for no particular reason. Then, when Sarah cooked for Lisa and her family, she was giggling and wriggling from all the tickling Lisa was doing. And when Lisa and her family ate their spaghetti, they all began to giggle and wiggle, just as Sarah did while she was cooking. Sarah could not figure out just what it was that would make everyone that ate her spaghetti feel the same way she felt while she cooked it. And from that day on, Sarah decided to never cook her sloppy spaghetti again. Well, maybe not until one day when it would come in handy. The end.